Hello everyone, David J Coon with Qigong Awareness. As a reminder, Qigong for Beginners, Your Path to Greater Health and Vitality. I am the author of this most excellent book. It's most excellent because there is a ton of information in here on how to heal and change and transform yourself. This book, and I'm not just trying to sell you the book, I'm actually trying to help you in your life. So for me personally, I grew up with pain. I grew up with disease, a spinal disease that the doctor said will cripple me by the time I was 30. I grew up being diagnosed with a biological panic disorder. And I have these anxiety attacks. I didn't know how to get rid of them. I grew up with a family of extended alcoholics and wrestling with alcoholism and so on. And emotionally, I was suffering. I would walk 2 miles, about 2.5 miles to school in middle school. We moved three times in middle school, and I ended up walking 2.5 miles to the middle school every day with a big bag of books over my shoulder because I didn't want to go to the lockers. And I didn't want to get picked on, and I didn't want to get bullied on the bus. The bullying on the bus was like worse than the bullying that went on in school, and the bullying that went on in school was pretty bad. So luckily for me, I got introduced to martial arts. I got introduced to traditional Chinese medicine. I got introduced through martial arts into this weird practice, sometimes considered weird, Qigong practice, right? A lot of people can't even pronounce it, Qigong. It is a Chinese word from the Chinese language. It says Qigong. It means the skilled cultivation of universal life force or energy. That's its general definition. Just to be clear, when I was growing up, I was a fan of Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee was a big fan of an entity known as Jiddu Krishnamurti, and he used to read Jiddu Krishnamurti's writings and teachings and so on. And for those of you who don't know who Jiddu Krishnamurti was, he was my short version in my interpretation of the story and so on, very quickly and briefly. He was a teacher in India, from India, and he was raised from the time he was a child to be the next world leader and to sort of take over the world with his teachings and kind of become like a Buddha and so on. And in my opinion, he became a Buddha on the level that he did. But the first thing that he did at 18 years old was when they put him in power of this organization, he disbanded the organization, and he said that any organization, essentially, he said any organization causes separation, and I don't want to create separation between myself and other people. I like the idea of unity. I like the idea of unity consciousness. I'm not sure exactly what words he used, but that kind of idea. And he wanted to create more of an open environment rather than a separated or segregated environment. So he sort of blew everybody's mind when he turned 18 and sort of disbanded everything. And so he was a big teacher on letting go of ways, letting go of doing it this way or that way, and this religion versus that religion. Anyway, Bruce Lee was a fan of his writings and his teachings. Bruce Lee brought that into his martial arts practices. One of Bruce Lee's philosophies, again, somewhat coming from Jiddu Krishnamurti, but also some of his other studies, this idea of using no way as way and having no limitation as limitation. So, following in suit behind, so to speak, Bruce Lee, behind Jiddu Krishnamurti and others just like that, I really, in searching for healing in my own life and desiring to heal disease in my body and desiring to heal emotional disease in my body, I became a practitioner of many things. As I've said in the previous videos, I'm not a dabbler. I'm not much of a dabbler. I may dabble here or there a little bit in something, but I dive into things. I go very in depth and study many, many hours before I throw in the towel on something or discover its secrets, okay? And so in this Qigong book, it's not just physical exercises, hold a posture like this. There might be a little bit of that, or there might be practice this type of breath, but it's also all the other things that I've learned along the way. How to have a particular kind of attitude, how to challenge yourself to face your mood and look at your mood every day And how is your mood related to your attitude? And how is your attitude and your mood related to the biology and the biochemistry of your own water, the water in your body? What about the speech that you speak over your body? What about how you stand? What about how you breathe? So in the last video that I had a little conversation with you guys, I talked about mastering yourself, mastering your own life. That is something that comes along with martial art. That's something that comes along with at least a dedicated practice of Qigong practice, like some of the practices that come out of the Shaolin Temple, whether it's the Kung Fu practices or it's the Qigong practices, etc. And again, I've exposed myself to these types of teachings to a great deal. I've experimented. My biggest experiment has been with myself. I've discovered some things, including being able to heal that spinal disease that I had, including being able to get rid of those biological panic disorders. All right, from this place here, I want to segue into today's teaching. That's a little bit of a background. First teaching is, I invite you to go ahead and take a deep breath. It also allows me to take a deep breath. Here we go. In through the nose. Slow and easy. Fill the belly first, then exhale. Then slow and easy through the nose. Try and fill the belly. That may be a little weird at first. And then exhale your breath. You can exhale through the nose and also the mouth. All right, so I started out this video series, which essentially is trying to catch some of you up to speed with what many of my students have been doing for the last several or more years. I've been busy teaching seminars, I've been busy with private practice, and I've been busy teaching classes. And I haven't had much time for YouTube and putting videos up and so on and so forth, other than a little bit here and a little bit there. I've been building online courses and building a certification program and so on. But for those of you who are first meeting me, or those of you who maybe you came to a seminar, you want to rebuild some of your strategies, your skills, and your tools because you're recognizing and realizing that your life was better when you were practicing these kinds of practices. Welcome back. So I want to take you from kind of step one, so to speak, a little bit of a background, my background, sometimes talking about what other people have done with the practices, because every single person that's ever done it other than me, okay, there's me, but then there's all the other people who have done it, who have healed things, who have changed things, who have transformed things, who have manifested things. The more you hear stories like that, the more you start thinking to yourself, maybe I can do it. And the truth is, of course you can, because what? As I said before, you are hardwired, okay, for greatness. Another chakra chart, okay? You are hardwired for greatness, okay? Within your system, so many different pathways, I told you. Here's another example of some pathways. You may not be able to read that or see that exactly, but the main idea is there. You can see the chakras there. You can see some other pathways. In the Indian terms, it's called Ida and Pingala, and the central pathway that the chakras sit on is called Sushumna. In Chinese medicine, they call that Chong Mai. So, this is what you're made of. And that's just a little background of warm-up. Today, I want to give you an exercise, but before I do, I want to take you into just a little bit more philosophy and a little bit more science, so to speak, building upon what we've done previously, okay? In your life, you may have stress, you may have anxiety, you may have depression. These are all normal on the level that they are, but they are associated with the lower chakras. Learning to cleanse, purify, purge the lower chakras and open up the upper centers is a big part of what these practices are about. So, without going too much into it, we'll build upon it as we go forward. But here's a couple simple scientific ideas. Again, hopefully it gives you permission to just try the practice on, know why you're doing it, know why it might work, okay? All right. You have these two aspects of the nervous system. You have the fight or flight system, which is the sympathetic nervous system, that when a bear comes, boom, or something, you have an exam coming up or whatever, it sets you into this old program called fight or flight, right? Which is where anxiety and so on comes from. And if that happens, by the way, too often, you have too many triggers, you'll find yourself getting depressed because you've depleted your energy, and you're trying to prevent yourself from having another anxiety attack. So there's a natural way to do that, so to speak. It's kind of unnatural too, depending on how you think about it, but it's a strategy. It's not the best strategy, but it's a strategy. People start shut down their emotions, turn their emotions inward, become real heavy, put a sandwich on top of that, and now you're depressed. Okay? So, all right, we want to change some of this. So, those people who are in that state, and I certainly have been one of those people, okay, when you're in that state and you're in fight or flight, even when you kind of push it down and you're in a depressed state, your adrenals are still cranking. You still typically have some waves of fight or flight. And then the other system within the nervous system is the other aspect of it is called the parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest system. So you can either be in a state of rest and digest, or you can be in a state of fight or flight. Now, within Qigong practice, we talk about one other state. That state is sometimes called the alchemical state. It is the state where you can transform your qi. I spoke to you last time about how the lower belly is an alchemical cooking pot, sometimes called lower dantian, or this elixir field of the lower dantian. Japanese martial arts is called the hara. Again, the Nadi's egg sits in there from the Indian practices. Okay, what we want to do is we want to, for lack of better words, we want to awaken this area. We want to charge this area. We want to recharge this area. There's different ways to say this. We need to bring our awareness there. And if we're smart and we're conscious, not just smart, but wise, we want to learn to bring our breath there. Bad breathing happens when we breathe through the mouth in general, like in, out through the mouth, and when we breathe just to the lungs and we're not breathing to the belly. So in this particular breath, which I'm going to give you, I'm going to teach you here briefly, quick version of it. And we're going to work with the lower dantian, which I talk about in the beginning of my book. It's very, very important in the ancient Chinese medicine practices to work with your lower dantian. I've been giving you hints about that in the last videos. I'm talking about it again here today. We need to recharge it. We need to charge that battery. We need to bring breath. And it is said in Taoist practice, for example, the Taoist meditative practices that come out of certain temples and so on related to Qigong, and the mountains of China and Tibet and so on. These practices, when you're breathing in and you're breathing out, it is said that the qi rides on the breath. In India, they call qi, they call that energy prana, and they will say the prana rides on the breath. So we want to work with the breath. We want to charge the lower dantian. And this is going to take some time. It's not going to be something we do one time and it's like, oh, you've arrived, okay? If you like the practice, it's something that you have to develop over years. I know, it seems like a long time. Why even bother? But I will tell you that I changed my spinal condition through breathing practices. It was a huge part of how I changed my spinal condition. Breathing practices will change your mood. It will change the state of your nervous system, and therefore it's going to change your biochemistry and it's going to change your biology. Okay? So those are all the reasons. I just spent however many minutes, how many minutes? 13 minutes it looks like. I've spent 13 minutes talking to you about the why, but it's very important, I think. So now let's get into the actual practical application of the how. Okay, so different ways to do this. Let me give you one way today, and those of you who've trained with me before, you have a heads up, but maybe go ahead and practice with me again today. All right, so I'm going to change the camera angle on this ever so slightly, see if we can get it right the first time. Hopefully we can. Bear with me. I'm going to reposition myself so maybe you can see a little better what I'm doing. All right, here we go. Perfect. So from this position here, I'm going to take my two middle fingers. I'm going to touch them together. I'm going to place them at the lower rim of my belly button, okay? I'm not going to get into all the details about that right now, but we're going to start with that. And I'm already starting to burp a little bit. That's the changing of the energy and the changing of the digestion and the changing of the qi. So we have three states, right? Sympathetic, which is the fight or flight. Parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest. And the third state, which is called an alchemical state. In the alchemical state, we begin to shift the heavy energy called, sometimes referred to as lead, that sits in the belly, not actual lead, but as a metaphor. And we want to turn that energy into gold. That's a great idea, but it requires a lot of different practices. This is one of them. So you can sit or you can stand during this practice. You start off holding your hands here, and you hold your two middle fingers together at the lower rim of the navel center. The breath, and there's different kinds of breath we can do and so on. This particular breath I'm going to give you today is breath of fire. There's a lot of people who get into the details of how to do this, what's right, what's wrong. This is my best description to you. Don't worry about it too much. But you are trying to find a steady rhythm and a balance between the in and out. So you're going to breathe in through your nose, out through your nose. Okay? So it's going to go like this. Slow we start off. At first, this is going to be weird, and you're not going to know whether you're breathing in or breathing out. It's going to feel weird. If you have congestion in your nervous system, which pretty much everybody does, unless you've already done this for a bunch of years. So, looks like that. And you should have your hands feeling like your belly's going up and down, and it's going to make you hotter. I'm going to jump ahead just to show you how to do this, then shut the video off, go try it on your own, come back, and maybe check out the next video. We'll go into this and some other things in more detail. But I want to show you what a little bit more rapid breath of fire looks like, and this will take some time. But that sounds and looks like this. I'm trying to create a steady rhythm, which, like I said, a lot of you are going to have to use your willpower to keep breathing like that, because it's going to be bumpy for you. You're going to be doing a lot of this stuff. But just try and do your best. When you need a rest, just take a few inhales, exhales, and then go back to it. When you get better at it, try and close your eyes and concentrate your mind here, which is called the third eye. All right, so now take a look at this for just a moment. What's this look like if I'm going and you're thinking about a fire? What's this look like? This looks like that thing where you're like pumping wind right into the fire. You're pumping air into the fire to try and start the fire. I don't know if you've ever seen one of those. It's like a bag, and it's like pumping air, and you're trying to get the fire started. We used to have one of those years ago by the fireplace. It's called breath of fire for a reason. It stokes the fire in the basement. It stokes the fire in the lower dantian. It begins to provoke a concentrated chi at the base of the spine called kundalini. When kundalini, or chi, however you want to think of this briefly for now, when it begins to rise, I said this in some of the earlier videos, but it's going to be a theme we're going to keep working with. It causes your energy to rise, and it also causes your consciousness to rise. The consciousness rises with that energy. Again, it's not going to happen in one time, guys. It'll happen a little bit, but it's not going to be the same thing as if you did it for 365 days. Again, I've been practicing these kinds of practices for about 37 years. So, and the later years, let's say, I don't know, 25 of them have been even more concentrated than those previous years. All right, so try it on for size. You're going to inhale, exhale, hold your belly. How long should you do it? Try it for 5 minutes. Those of you that are a little brave, getting a little stronger, 10 minutes. Those of you that have been doing it for a while, see if you can do it for a half hour. The other day, I did it for an hour, and that was just like in between things. Don't do this after you've eaten a big sandwich. Don't do this right after you've eaten a bunch of stuff or drank a bunch of water. Make sure you're mostly empty stomach. One of the best times to do it is after you've been fasting for a while. You kind of fast overnight. You get up in the morning. You practice breath of fire. You have at it. This breath is transformative. if you do it in conjunction with fasting, and if you have some greater understanding with it, this is the beginning of it. Give it a shot, give it your best practice. It will take you out of the states of fight or flight. It will initially bring some rest and some digestion, but then it brings you into a third state, which is this alchemical state. And we're going to build upon that and discuss it more in some of our next episodes. So give it a shot. You have some questions or comments about that, meaningful ones, then go ahead and put them in there, and I'll be happy to respond to them. All right. Thank you, and I hope this is helpful to you in your own personal life, in your own personal practice. And if you have the book, or if you don't have the book, purchase the book. Get the ebook. Okay, it's only a few bucks. Qigong for Beginners, Your Path to Greater Health and Vitality. When you get to chapter 6, it's all about changing your mood. Very important if you want to change your life, change your mood, but we'll get there. Right now, we need to first change and empower and charge, which is what I talk about in the first couple of chapters, charging that lower dantian. Good luck. We're all counting on you.